Hello, everyone. Welcome to Everything Arsenal. International break is here once again. Everyone's nightmare. Another 2 weeks of no Premier League football, no club football, international football. Even to make it worse, there's no international football this week. There's actually only two National League games until the weekend, so it's going to be really, really boring. But we're here to talk about Arsenal. We're here to do some review on Arsenal season so far. We've played 9 games, 7 in the Premier League. We've played 2 in the Carabao Cup. Obviously, ups and downs, a couple of wins, a couple of losses, a couple of draws here and there. So, my guest with me here today is Whom will be helping me through it. But first, let's introduce him first. How are you?
I'm good, Glenn. Thank you for having me once again. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's been a while since we actually spoke. And I wish I had a bit more time just to get my thoughts in during the Tottenham game. But it's fine. You're right now. Now it's the depression period for. I don't want to use depression for on such a light note, but like,
Yeah.
it's a boring period until what 2 weeks. So yeah, man. And then I don't know. Do you watch international games like as religiously as you do Arsenal, for example?
Not as religiously, but I do watch it. I'm not like I never turn on the TV during the international break. I do turn on.
Yeah,
If there's only Estonia and Macedonia, I mean, I'll just watch to see how they play. I mean, but it won't be as interesting though. So I
yeah,
usually
fair
do
enough.
follow small players though. The Odegaards at Norway, the Xhakas at Switzerland, but even him is not playing international this time. So it's going to
Yeah.
be really, really boring. So anyway, we're here to talk about Arsenal. Screw the internationals. So first up is let's talk about our results so far this season. In fact, let's talk about our fixtures. If someone was to tell you the home at the beginning of the season, our first 7 fixtures will play against two promoted teams, Brentford and Norwich. We'll play against the European champions, Chelsea. We'll play against the Premier League champions, Manchester City. We'll also play against our rivals, Tottenham, and also have a couple of away games to Brighton and Burnley. 21 points available. How many would you have wanted from those 21 points?
Phew. That's a tough one because you'd expect to win against Brentford,
Yeah.
especially considering our record versus newly promoted sides. You'd expect the wins against Burnley and Brighton and Norwich. So you're talking about at least 12 points,
Mhm.
and then add on to it a North London derby at home.
Mhm.
At least 17 points. You're looking at least seven. No, sorry, not 17. 12 plus three, that's 15. Yeah, at least 15 points.
Yeah.
So yeah, it at the beginning of the season, I think when we all saw the calendar, we all worried, didn't we? We
Yeah.
looked
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
those first 3 games and we just thought to ourselves, "Oh no, that's not a good start." I mean, any club I think would struggle with those first 2 games.
Yeah.
The second and third games rather. But you know, there's no point looking at it with such a negative aspect
Yeah.
or negative point of view rather from my perspective is because there were so many different things that didn't allow you to give a proper analysis.
Yeah.
You always had to caveat it with this happened and then this happened, and obviously many people think they're excuses, but many people also think it's reasons. So at the very minimum, 15 points. But there
15
you go.
points. So if he had actually said 17, 17 would have meant no defeat so far. 5 wins and two draws. That would have been impossible. So 15 points,
Yeah.
5 wins and two losses, I'd understand. I would also have expected wins against Norwich, at least a point against Tottenham if it's not a win. Chelsea, we always do well against them. I would have expected at least a point against them. So that's 5. City, we never win there. Brentford, I've definitely expected a win. That would be 8. Brighton and Burnley, maybe at least 4 points. I would have said 12 myself instead of 15. But so far, we actually had 10. So that's below
Mm,
average. That's below what we're expecting anyway. So let's go
yeah.
through the first 3 games. That was Brentford, Chelsea, and Manchester City, where we conceded 9 goals, scored none, lost all 3 games that took us bottom of the table. During that period, what annoyed you most? Was it the fact that we weren't scoring goals? Was it the fact that we are conceding left, right, and center? A style of play? What annoyed you most?
The most annoying thing for me was the fact that we had such a big gulf in class between our first team and second team.
Mm,
Because there's to be fair to us, there is no planning for that many cases of COVID and injuries. And for example, Martin Odegaard not being able to get his visa in time for certain games. So it was the fact that we had to play guys like Sead Kolasinac in the squad. We had to uh, find a way with you know what do you call this guy, Rob Holding, and
Mhm.
no right back Cedric and these men.
Mhm.
And it was very frustrating because we also didn't have much of a backup in terms of our two strikers. Apart from Lacazette and Aubameyang, there's no real player there that can really take the game by the scruff of the neck. Gabriel Martinelli is too young, and for all the promise, he looks like he's falling away now. I'm hearing he's even growing frustrated. But like those kind of things frustrate me because we, despite us spending 150 million pounds, close to 150 million pounds in the transfer market, it still felt like we still had a lot to do. Overall, we did spend most of our money at the back of our starting 11, and it felt like we always needed to refresh our goal scoring options. And to go into the season with Aubameyang and Lacazette as the only real options,
Yeah.
it was annoying because when you lose them two, it showed us. The Premier League showed us that we can't rely on Gabriel Martinelli or Balogun to carry the team. For example, the way Saka and Emil Smith Rowe did, and they're not quite ready. I mean, Gabriel Martinelli for sure is ready, but right now to lead the line, it's a bit of a tough ask. And Balogun definitely needs. He's in a place where he's too good for the under 23s, but he's still. It's not to say that he's not good enough to play for the first team, but It still feels like, at least for me, at least it feels like he still needs maybe a loan, like a 6 month to maybe a 1 year loan at a championship side or something like that. By the time, for example, if you look at Tammy Abraham, by the time he came back to the Prem, I think he'd had over 60 appearances, in the
Yeah.
championship, and just overall first team football, in professional first team football. And
Mm.
that would benefit someone like Balogun so much, you know such that if you had thrown him into um, the the first 11 against Brentford, for example,
Mhm.
he would have been better equipped, and so yeah, I think that's the most annoying thing. But there is something that comes really close that I think is also worth mentioning,
Yeah. Right.
and that's even beyond the first three games, is the fact that despite us having good defense and we're quite solid at the back, we have a good keeper, we still don't score enough goals, in
Yeah.
my opinion. Yeah, I know the 3 goals versus Tottenham, gives it a bit of a gloss, right?
Mhm.
But that's 5 goals in 4 games after the restart, after the first international break. So yeah, that comes like a really close second that I just think is worth just plugging in there. So yeah.
So lack of goals the first three games, and also the gap between the first team and the second team. So totally understand that. Totally, I would have expected. For me, I'd say the conceding of goals. Last season we had one of the best defensive records. So
Mm,
just all of a sudden starting the season and conceding 9 goals from 3 games, that was very, very concerning. Although I do
mm,
understand most of our players weren't there. We were missing Partey, we were missing Gabriel. Basically, the spine of the team was not there. We also missed Aubameyang and Lacazette for a couple of games as well. You mentioned Balogun, though. I usually follow the under 23s very, very
mm.
much. So the first game he played for us as the striker alongside Martinelli. Do you
Yeah,
think he impress you? Did you not think his performance was good enough, or do you blame the performance on everyone in general? The team was
yeah,
poor.
very very much so. The last option, it
Mm,
was a poor night by everyone, from the players on the pitch to the manager and the coaching
yeah,
staff. There were so many bad decisions that we made on and
yeah,
off the pitch, and
yeah,
the thing is, those kind of things can happen when there's so much chaos, right? But
yeah,
what we need to see is, you're right. The way we conceded goals in the first 3 games. A proper system that
yeah,
doesn't rely on the quality of the players as heavily
mhm,
would could have spared us our blushes. But
yeah,
it seems like we're a bit of a Goldilocks team right now. We just need everything just to be, everything to fit into place. We need all the right circumstances to play good football. We need all the right players, and that's not. I don't think that's sustainable over the course of the season.
Yeah, very true.
Be- because there's so many things that you have to deal with: COVID, injuries, sickness. I don't know, someone's wife being pregnant and about to give birth.
Yeah,
Just so many random things.
yeah,
'Cause at the end of the day, these guys are human beings, so you need to make sure you take as much of the human aspect out of the system as possible, so that
yeah,
the system works regardless of who you bring in and who you take out. You know,
yeah, yeah,
and I think a big part of the reason that we conceded those goals, first of all, is the quality of players, but also the fact that for I'm not saying this is necessarily the coaching staff's fault, right? But I feel
mhm,
like this is more a macro issue, like the management's fault. It's we have this many players that don't fit a particular system and don't have the right quality because of their lack of oversight.
yeah,
Their lack of hands-on approach. They very much let people run the club like Raul Sanllehi, and then we tied ourselves down to these players with massive contracts that nobody wants now, and now we have to like slowly weed them out, slowly, painfully slowly, in my opinion.
yeah, yeah,
Like when people said Arteta would need Arteta and his coaching staff would need 3-4 windows, right? I never
yeah,
actually clocked the fact that it would actually not just be in terms of incomings, but also in terms of outgoings. And I didn't now I understand why someone would say 3 to 4 seasons, because within 3 to 4 seasons, people are running down their contracts. They have a weaker hand, and people have a greater hand at other clubs. Rather, they have a greater hand at knocking the price down for certain players, and they get older, so it's easier to move them on over the course of 3 to 4 transfer windows. But yeah, we're still right in the middle of it, and that transition, that process. So it's yeah, it's just painfully frustrating.
yeah. So international break came after the first three games. So let's take a
Mhm.
look at our results so far this season. As you can see, scrolling down the bottom, Brentford beat us 2-0, then Chelsea beat us 2-0, then City beat us 5-0. Then after the international break, we beat Norwich 1-0, we beat Burnley 1-0, we beat Tottenham 3-1, and we drew 0-0 with Brighton. And then in
Mm.
the Carabao Cup, we beat West Brom 6-0, and we also beat Wimbledon 3-0. So after the international break, we were all looking at the four fixtures. Obviously, Arteta was going to stay. The transfer window is now closed. We were facing Norwich, Burnley, Tottenham, and Brighton. 12 points
Mm.
available. Did you want all 12 of them without
I did.
any
I
slip-ups at
really did.
all?
Yeah, I really did. Obviously, we all do.
Mhm,
Whether someone can think that's realistic or not,
mhm,
that depends on the pessimism or optimism of that individual. But
yeah,
for me, why I wanted and why I expected it is because after the first win against Norwich, that players, no matter how bad their form is, they can get a lot of confidence. They can certainly extract a lot more confidence than we as fans do. We look at the performance. Someone will say it's only Norwich, someone
yeah,
will say it's only Burnley. But at the same time, those players, as long as they get 3 points, as long as they get the win, and uh, they take a lot out of that. So
mm,
I expected us to build on that platform, and now especially when what happened versus Tottenham, the way that we won that derby.
mhm,
I expected us to carry that confidence and a week under our belts without training to go away at Brighton and be able to pull out a win and a good performance. But for example, we didn't have a great game. It was it was tough conditions considering the tactical mistakes, in my opinion. But 12 points out of what do we get? 10
10.
points out of 12 from those
Yeah,
games. That's a good return. 3 clean sheets. If you're looking for some silver linings from those
yeah,
dark clouds, it's that we've shored up our defense. We've made some interesting selection decisions that
mhm,
seem to be reaping the coaching staff the rewards. And um, so yeah, it's a good platform. Aaron Ramsdale actually spoke about it. He said he
Yeah.
couldn't ask for much more. 3 wins and 3 clean sheets, and a draw isn't too bad considering our shaky start. And it's a long seasons ahead. I mean, how many games have we played now? 7 in the
Yeah.
league.
Yeah.
So we still have a lot. We still have 31 games to
Yeah.
play. Oh my goodness! And you saw
Lots.
how quick things change. I mean, when we started the season, and by the time we went into the first international break, Tottenham were top of the table, and
Yeah.
now we're level on points with them, I believe. So
They're not
we're
ahead of
we're
us. It's
they're ahead
changed
of us,
again.
but
It's changed
yeah, I
again.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, th- people were making fun of us, and we managed to claw our way back. And how many points are we off the top? I think still
Six.
5, 6 points, 6 points away off the top. But that's
Mm.
not necessarily our target. Now it's just a matter of doing enough to stay within range. And I- I'd like to get your opinions on the Brighton game. I mean, this might be a
Yeah,
bit repetitive, but if you could keep.
I wanted us to come back to that. Let's talk about the Tottenham
All
game
right, no
first.
worries. Yeah, okay,
There's a
fair enough.
couple that Brighton game I definitely have to talk about. It's just a couple of things before that. First, the first one is obviously beat Norwich, then beat Burnley, and then Tottenham. So I know
Mhm.
it sounds silly, but to ask which one is the best result, and it's going to be Tottenham. So I'm going to ask which one was the most relieving result. Was it the first win against Norwich? Like, phew, we finally won a game, or was it the second one? 2 wins in a row. Finally, we can now go into the third and the fourth game. Or is it a Tottenham game? We've actually beaten our rivals. We can now get into a run. Which was the most relieving from those three?
For me personally, it's the Burnley game. I
Mm,
expected the Norwich win, and Max Aarons actually went on Five with Rio, the Five with Rio podcast, and he
mm,
said he thought that they deserved at least a point. And I'm like, from what? What did you create? I can't remember one good chance that they created
yeah,
against us at the Emirates. So, and when you consider how many chances we missed, we should have won that game more than just by 1 goal.
yeah,
The Burnley one, I was more relieved because on the day, I could tell that defensively we were going to be quite solid. Right?
mhm,
But considering how we struggled in the final third,
yeah,
there were some bad first touches from guys like Bukayo Saka, the wrong pass from Emil Smith Rowe, where he, instead of passing it into Pepe's path, he passes it straight at Pepe, and Pepe has to check his run. Aubameyang overhitting a pass to Pepe to try and put him through on goal.
yeah. Also,
So
Smith Rowe had a chance on the left side, easy shot
y-
to the goalkeeper.
yes, actually, you're right, and you know that's what concerned me on the day is that it felt like one of those games, and we've seen these games many, many times.
Yeah,
One of those games where you have chances and you have a 1 goal lead, and then Burnley, after peppering us with aerial balls, we concede a silly deflected goal or a set piece goal from a lack of concentration or something like
yeah,
that. And that's why I was mostly relieved. But when you think about it, they didn't really get too many shots on target. And when they did, they were tame. They were quite easy for Ramsdale.
yeah.
But yeah, I think that was the most relieving one because following the Burnley game, I actually expected us to score 3 goals against Tottenham.
Okay, and then we went to Tottenham. Next up, we were playing Tottenham. I'm sure even not even you expected three quick goals like that, quick fire goals to shock Tottenham like that. Do you think it's a case
Yeah,
of Arsenal were good on that day? Or do you think it's a case of Tottenham were just very bad?
it's definitely both. I
Mm,
definitely didn't expect 3 goals in one half.
mm,
Um, and I didn't expect us to have such efficiency.
mm,
But what I did expect was a more fluent attacking performance because I
yeah,
knew what happened against Burnley. That those weren't necessarily cause for concern. They were green shoots of life. They were like
mm,
little signs that what's going to come next is going to be very good for us. So,
yeah,
the fact that we played, who was it, Wimbledon in between? Was it Wimbledon in between?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Uh, it was a good chance for us to rest players, and I expected them to struggle. And I think considering they went all the way to penalties against Wolves, it
mm,
played a huge role in the performance that they put in. But at the end of the day, it's a derby, and when it comes to a derby, fans don't want to hear about any excuses. You just have
yeah,
to give every single thing you can, and a lot of people have tried taking away the win from us by suggesting
mhm,
that They lost against Crystal Palace 3-0. They lost to
Mhm.
Chelsea 3-0. But in my opinion, if we look at those games in isolation, Crystal Palace, they had a red card early on and they got punished. That can happen when you go one man down. I mean, look at us with City.
Yeah,
Although, to be fair, we probably would have still lost 5-0 without a red card. But the Chelsea game, I thought the first half, Nuno seemed to be tactically on top of Tuchel,
yeah,
and he got his tactics right. They were beating the Chelsea press, and they created some chances that they just couldn't take advantage of. But then, Tuchel switched it up in the second half, and they they pretty much just lost to two set pieces and a deflected Kante shot from 30 yards out, a
yeah,
weirdly deflected Kante shot. So I didn't think they were too bad against Chelsea. But
yeah.
obviously, from their point of view, you shouldn't be conceding 3 goals to three London teams: Palace,
In
Chelsea,
a row.
Arsenal, in a row. It's
Yeah,
difficult to take for them. But I expected that win, man. To be honest, I expected Xhaka to start. I didn't want him to start, but he did, and
yeah,
fair play to him. He didn't have a bad game. He
yeah,
had a decent game, but I just felt like had we played with a different player like Lokonga or
yeah,
someone more progressive and more technically, secure within tight spaces, we
yeah,
could have continued that momentum of goals. We could have maybe scored a fourth and fifth and really tried and dominated them. But it
yeah.
looked like those guys they were happy with the second half, right? They came into
Yeah.
they're like, we don't really need to push as much anymore. We have 3 goals. This is a great win already.
Would
So
you
yeah.
would you want us to change that mentality? I've seen us scoring over the years. We scored 3 against United in the first half, didn't add any. We scored 3 against Conte's Chelsea, didn't add any. We usually do
Yeah.
that every single time. If City gets 3 goals against in the first 25 minutes, they'll get 8. Do you want us to change that, or are you happy with managing the game?
No, no, no. I'd like to change that, man, because this is what Arteta promised us, not
Mm,
pragmatism. He promised us full flowing attacking football and for us to continue asking questions. And he spoke about it. I think, if I'm not mistaken, when he first came on, he said he wants to keep the opposition team in their box for
yeah,
90 minutes. And at the
mm,
time, he said, right now we don't have the capacity to it. And till up to now, we still don't have that capacity,
mm.
for different reasons. But I'm not too bothered by it. To be fair, there might be a slight cause for concern or worry with the game against Brighton, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But against Tottenham, it's a derby. The team is going to come out fighting. It's good to not try and concede, and at the end of the day, get the 3 points. So that's what we did. It was a job well done.
That's next up, Brighton. So before I ask you my question, you can go ahead with what you wanted to ask about this game.
Yeah. So how did you feel about Brighton? Because it was Brighton, out of all those games, considering the start they've had to the season, I actually thought they would be a challenge. I was wary of them. I saw some
Mhm.
Arsenal fans, you know, uh, disrespectfully, in my opinion, expecting 3-0 win against Brighton. But I thought, I thought it would be, I'd be happy with a 2-1 win, let alone a
Mhm.
3-0.
Yeah,
And I'd be happy with any kind of win because I saw how difficult they are to play. And remember, these guys last season, they should have scored more goals than they did, and they should have,
XG Kings.
yeah, and they shouldn't have conceded as many goals as they did,
Yeah.
which made their position and their performances, look bad. When you look at the table, it looks bad. Last season's table, it looks a little bad. But how did you feel? I mean, what did you make of our performance?
You can tell from my prediction for the game that I do not like playing Brighton. Usually, like against Brentford, I predicted, I think, 3-1. I think against Burnley, I said 2-0. I think against Norwich, you said 3-1. So you
Mm,
tell from the predictions that I'm expecting a win. This one, I was saying 2-1. I was saying it's going to be 1-1. In my prediction show, I said it's going to be 1-1 for most of the game, and we're
mm.
probably going to get a win at the end of the game. Could have been that way. Could have been 0-0, and then if Smith Rowe took his chance at the end, could have been 1-0, just what I expected, but with more
Yeah,
goals. So for me, against Brighton, I think Brighton, I agree with you. From all these fixtures, I even think apart from City, Brighton could be second because we have a terrible record against Brighton. I think we've only won there once. I think it was after, was it last season? That's when the first time we've won there in like 5 seasons.
yeah,
I think in our games playing against them, I think we've played like 9 games. They've beaten us like 4 times and we've beaten them like twice only. That's how bad our record is against Brighton. That was before last season, obviously at the end of last season, and we beat them at
The
the end. So the performance-wise, I was telling people, it's kind of disrespectful, as you said, to just expect 3 points. Yes, we beat Norwich, we beat Burnley, we beat Tottenham, but no one said we are just going to win,
exactly,
beat Brighton,
exactly.
beat Palace, beat Aston Villa, beat. For me, I always say, if you don't score, don't get scored. If you don't win the game, don't lose the game. As long as we
Exactly.
didn't lose the game, draw the game. Brighton have been very good this season. It's not just Arsenal. Brighton will give a lot of teams a hard time at their place, especially. You have to take
100%.
the weather into consideration, although you don't like blaming the weather because it affects both teams. They are very tall centre backs. In terms of corners and free kicks, I was so happy you're able to deal with it. Dunk, Duff, it's so dangerous from that. They're very quick. They even lacked Bissouma, but they looked very good. Even with Bissouma there, it would have been worse. Maybe you'd have lost the game. So I was happy with getting a draw in such a game. For me, I was happy with the draw. I didn't look at it like a point,
Yeah,
a 2 points lost. That was going to be my question. 1 point
yeah.
gained or 2 points lost?
I think all things considered, it's definitely 1 point gained.
Mm,
I think I wouldn't say we were lucky to not have lost,
mhm.
but certainly they if we're talking about percentages on who deserved to win, it's 51-49, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And it was that 1% that kept it at 50-50. And that 1% was things like Ramsdale's save, the fact that they just couldn't seem to get shots on target. And even
Yeah.
when they did, Ramsdale was up to the task. And
Mhm.
we had a number of players who just didn't have good games. They were just not in the game at all. Like someone like Martin Odegaard,
Yeah.
Party, I didn't think had a great game. Let's not even talk about his shooting. Tomiyasu, Tomiyasu, um,
Yeah.
Arteta as well. Aubameyang. Before we get to Arteta, Aubameyang, he's always going to struggle against strikers of that ilk.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I think considering the task at hand, maybe Lacazette would have been a better fit because as soon as he came on, we looked like we had a bit more about us. A
Yeah.
bit more connection within our passing in the final third and midfield. We just had more options suddenly.
Yeah.
And maybe even Pepe should have started
Mhm.
instead of Emil Smith Rowe. I just have the feeling that Pepe would have been more clinical in those
Yeah.
situations.
Yeah.
But overall, it's not a bad result. A point on the board away from home and a clean sheet, the third clean sheet within 4 games.
Yeah.
That's good. If you were trying to grade it like a report card, I'd give it like a strong B plus.
Okay.
Actually,
Interesting.
no, maybe I'd give it a B minus because we didn't score as many goals as we'd have liked. But going to Arteta, I
Mhm.
feel like Arteta made tactical mistakes. The first one I already talked about, Aubameyang for Lacazette.
Mhm.
The kind of football that you'd have liked to play. But then the second one, and I think this is the one that matters the most, is what he did with our midfield. He asked Lokonga to continue playing off the left
Yeah. Most of the time,
whenever we
yeah.
were on the ball. And
Yeah.
what that robbed us, in my opinion, was an option in midfield with Partey.
Yeah.
Partey, more often than not, he can act as the only pivot, right?
Yeah.
He
True.
did that against Burnley, but he had Martin Odegaard and Emil Smith Rowe to help him with in terms of numbers. Here,
Surprisingly,
he
that
had
day,
no one.
we never created a lot of chances as expected in that game. Speaking about it.
Yeah, and the thing is, Martin Odegaard didn't have a great game, so
Mm.
in my opinion, he could have been taken off a bit earlier. But Lokonga should Arteta have asked Lokonga to stay in midfield with Partey to act as a double pivot, then we probably would have seen a much better performance from our point of view, and maybe even Martin Odegaard. For example, I saw this random stat: Emil Smith Rowe didn't pass the ball to Martin Odegaard once in that Brighton game.
Wow.
And that's
Yeah.
a
Never.
problem considering
Yeah.
who our number 10 is. Our number 10 is quite clearly Martin Odegaard. So we need to get the ball to him as much as possible. But that's not to take
Mm.
anything. It's not supposed to be a knock on Emil Smith Rowe. Emil Smith Rowe, in my opinion, was our best player on the night.
Mm.
Him and Ramsdale at least. So I'm not too disappointed.
Yeah.
Brighton, like you said, is going to be a tough team, and people are laughing. Rival fans are laughing. Arsenal fans who are in pain and frustrated, they're also laughing. How do you draw to Brighton?
Yeah.
Boss, Brighton play football. You have to give credit to them.
Yeah.
Graham Potter has designed an amazing system for them to play with. And the way they play the ball out the back, I mean, sometimes I couldn't tell if in their goal it was
Yeah.
Ramon Sanchez or Ederson. That guy was on the ball and
Yeah.
beyond his center backs. And I'm like,
Mhm.
who is this confident keeper, man? Like, what
Speaking
the
of
hell
their
is this?
keeper, I do not
Yeah.
I do not know whether it was Cucurella or Roberto Carlos on the left. I
Oh
did
my
not
days,
know. He was
Cucurella.
absolutely he was
Yeah,
fun.
he's
I
an
used to watch him
yeah,
at Getafe. I never
yeah.
knew he's this good. I
He
never
was
knew he
one
was
of the
this good.
he was one of the left backs that that we were linked with quite frequently
Yeah.
before we signed Kieran Tierney.
Mhm.
And wow, he is a fantastic player, and he troubled Tomiyasu. Tomiyasu probably had his first tough game against Brighton,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. Very, very tough
it's
game.
it's good that we have the characters like Ben White and Gabriel and Tomiyasu and KT, who also didn't have a good game either, especially on the ball,
Yeah.
to grind out such a result. Because let me tell you, man, when you look at the results around us, right? Look at Man
Mhm.
United, for example.
Yeah.
They lost at home to Villa. Then they
Mhm.
drew to Everton 1-1. And they could have
Yeah.
lost towards the end there if not for a bad decision by Tom Davis.
Yeah.
But, you know, if they're going to struggle against teams like those, they're definitely going to struggle against a team like Brighton. And
Yeah.
other teams are going to struggle against teams like Brighton. I honestly expect, like, for example, look at the way Liverpool struggled against Brentford.
Mhm.
You can safely make a prediction that they will struggle against Brighton.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
would Tottenham, and so would all these other top six rivals, Leicester City and all them.
I mean,
So
last season Brighton beat City. The United
yeah,
scored a penalty after the final whistle against them. I
yeah.
mean, they beat Tottenham, I think, the last three times they've
After,
gone to their mix.
sorry, just to add on to that United result, after Brighton had hit the post 5 times.
5 times in the game.
My
And
goodness.
I'll never forget Trossard and Connolly in that game, how many times they're
Yeah.
missing chances.
And
But
Trossard, can we talk about Trossard? Trossard is a fantastic footballer. He's so technically gifted. He gave us problems all the time. I felt like
yeah,
maybe Odegaard and Emil Smith Rowe could have done better defensively to help us not get overrun in midfield. They didn't.
yeah,
It's not for a lack of effort. It's more to do with the fact that they just didn't make the right defensive decisions, where to
yeah,
drop in, you know, the communication in between them and midfield. So
yeah,
anyway, a point away from home, 10 points from a possible 12 and 3 clean sheets.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a B minus for me. If we scored more goals, then perhaps we'd give it a different grade.
Awesome. So I wanted to keep this at around 36 minutes. So just quick answers on the next questions. Emil Smith Rowe. I've heard the people saying he's greedy. Do you think his greed is just the decision making in the final third because he didn't pass the ball to Saka against Brighton?
Yeah, no, I don't think he's greedy, man. I think you have to give credit in that situation. You have to give
Mm,
credit to the defender because he blocked the passing lane initially. Although I
yeah,
thought if Emil Smith Rowe was running with the ball and looking up at the time, he probably would have been able to execute a pass around the corner,
yeah,
around that defender, because there was so much space for Saka to run into and go 1v1.
yeah,
But if he put more power, if we saw a shot something similar to the Phil Foden shots against Liverpool the
yeah.
next day, then we would have seen we would have seen an Emil Smith Rowe goal. But I can't fault him. I mean, that guy worked so hard throughout the game. He really tried to help us break out of pressure from Brighton. So I don't think he's selfish. Come on, I mean, Samuel Smith Rowe. This guy loves the club. You think he loves himself more than the club? I doubt it.
I don't think so. So just quick ones on the positives and the negatives so far. New signings. What have you made of the new signings? Have all the new signings impressed you so far, and who has been the best so far for you?
The best so far has been Ramsdale. All of
Mm,
them have impressed me. Tomiyasu is so good on the ball. He's good with his left and right.
mm,
He makes the right decisions. He doesn't really lose the ball too often. Martin
and
Odegaard has
positioning.
come in, and yeah, his positioning is very good. He's so strong in the air. But Martin Odegaard, for example, he's come back and he's carried on the good work that he laid, the foundation of the foundation that he laid in January or Feb,
Mm,
right? Throughout
yeah,
the last second part of last season.
yeah,
And he's had a good impact on our team. We saw him have an especially good game against Tottenham. And that, I mean, he scored a free kick, a good free kick, not one of these lucky free kicks that we score every once in a while, because we don't have
Yeah.
a set piece taker.
Mhm.
And Ben White, man, Ben White has come in. He's barely had time to come and play with Gabriel, but it looks like there's a budding partnership. You know, that's not to say they're not going to have bad days, but they've had good days throughout the campaign already.
Yeah.
Um, so they're both young. They're both 23. They're both good on the ball. One is a bit more aggressive, but one is more intelligent in terms of the way he reads the game. So
Yeah.
I'm very happy with them. But the most impressive is Ramsdale. Ramsdale has been a revelation. You remember, this is someone who Arteta wanted by hook or by crook.
Mhm.
Arteta asked Edu, let's get Ramsdale. Ramsdale's price tag was slapped on him and it read £30 million. Edu said, we don't have that budget. Edu then decided, let's try Neto from Barcelona, the second choice keeper.
Yeah.
Arteta said, no, I want Ramsdale.
Mhm.
And apparently they just they deployed some tactics to make it look like they're not gonna pursue him anymore, since Sheffield are gonna be, quite tight about him. But then
Yeah.
eventually they got their man, and you can see why. He's so good on the ball.
Mhm.
Honestly, in my opinion, he doesn't see a pass.
Yeah.
He sees a move.
This is
That- I'm serious. I
yeah.
only used to say things like that about someone like Mesut Ozil and Xavi, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes he forgoes the closer option and goes for the option that's beyond the first one, so that they create a triangle. Sometimes he pretends he takes this shape of a keeper that is about to kick the ball long, right?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
then just at the end, just before he kicks it, he changes up his shape and he kicks it low. And
Yeah.
it's supposed to fool the pressing opposition player, because it's supposed to slow him down from cutting the passing lane.
Yeah.
So he's so good at doing that. I just wish we gave him more options against Brighton to try and exploit them the way we did. I think if Lokonga offered more options in midfield, Ramsdale would have had more options. We would have had more options to break out of the press and then attack them with a very quick front three. So
Yeah.
yeah, anyway, it is what it is.
What about Lokonga? How's Lokonga been for you?
Lokonga's been good, man. Even Tavares, they've all been good. I can't remember too many mistakes, especially from someone like Tavares, who I
Yeah.
thought might be a bit um, immature
Yeah.
or inexperienced with his gameplay. But Kieran Tierney, in my opinion, he better watch out. I hope he stays fit, because Tavares could knock his could set his foot down within the team if he
Yeah.
gets a good run of games and gets acclimatized to the Premier League. But I think we've signed a very good couple of young players. I mean, Sambi Lokonga, I'm asking for Arteta to just continue starting him, and now we're going to see him a lot more. But
Yeah.
I'm asking Arteta to just continue starting him, because when him and Partey start in midfield, we look quite solid. When
Mhm.
Lokonga is being asked to play in this weird left back hybrid role, it's not very convincing. I don't think that's the right position. And I think Arteta actually spoke about it during his press conference after the
Mhm.
game. He said maybe the Brighton game wasn't the game for him, and I think
Yeah.
that's more to do with the way he deployed him rather than the way Lokonga plays. Yeah. So yeah, I'm very happy with our signings, man. All six of them, fantastic. And that's supposed to be a good sign that Arteta and Edu are making good signings. You
Mhm.
know, this is such a weird thing. Paul Merson, I remember I watched his Sky Sports preview for the North London Derby. Him,
Mhm.
Clinton Morrison, and Tim Sherwood all said that Tottenham would finish above Arsenal. And
Yeah.
Paul Merson specifically cited the fact that we signed a bunch of players that nobody knows and nobody was
Knows.
competing for.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
had that
Then
before the
after
split
that,
between the two.
yeah. And then after that, he says, "Oh, I think they've made some very good signings, and yeah, who knows? Maybe even top four." I'm like, "You crazy guy! Like,
Yeah.
where's your consistency? I mean, you're on Sky
Mm.
Sport. You're
Yeah.
on you're on you're supposed to be a legend of the club. You don't want to do your research. You just wake up and just head to Sky Sports and wing it, absolutely wing it.
Mhm.
He probably gets told by his support staff, who Arsenal have signed and how to
Yeah.
pronounce them, how to
Yeah.
pronounce their names. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So for me, for the new signings, Ramsdale, I did not know he was that much of a leader. They always see him shouting at the defenders, screaming. I absolutely love every time he makes the save. He's like going to these defenders. Absolutely love that. Tomiyasu, what I need from my right back, know when to go forward, when to come back. Positioning is very, very important for me if you're a wing back or full back. Also for Tavares, obviously we'll see more of him. Obviously, Tini might not stay fit for the whole season. Lokonga has been great so far. Not my best signing. I really like Ben White. Obviously, the first two games weren't the best. They say they even ran away from the Chelsea game so that he couldn't get picked against Lukaku. But I think he's very, very good as well.
Yeah.
Odegaard has surprised me as well. I couldn't. The game against Tottenham, I actually gave him a 7 out of 10. And then I watched the game back and I was like, everything went through him. Even if he didn't get a goal or an assist, everything went through him. And who have I forgotten? Basically, all the signings we've made have been great. Basically.
That's it. Yeah. But you're right. You're right. You know, the thing is, what with Ramsdale, he's English. When we beat, did he play against Norwich? Yeah, he did. And then when we beat Burnley, he said he posted on his Instagram saying 1-0 to the Arsenal. He understands the culture. He understands the history of the club better than someone like Bernd Leno would. You understand?
Yeah.
And there was a moment where, in the Burnley game, where KT was on the floor and one of these Woods from Burnley wanted to shout at him, right? And wanted to pick him up, but Ramsdale just put his hand across and he's like, get off. And Gunnerblog, who's a famous writer I follow around Arsenal, he said this kind of stuff matters. And then Charlie Nicholas retweeted that saying 100%. Those are Arsenal people. They understand what it means. And right now, I think we have an Arsenal keeper, like a proper Arsenal keeper.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll try to do we'll do a live stream with Zoom. Probably should have done this live. But make sure to smash the like button. We'll also do another video with Zoom talking about Watkins and Calvert-Lewin. Should be out by tomorrow as well. So after he puts it out, I'll link it up in the YouTube card right now. Zoom's links will be in the description as well. So make sure to smash the like button, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch up with you guys on the next one.